The relentless hum of servers and the soft glow of monitors painted the vast open-plan office of Viridian Dynamics, a technological behemoth nestled in the heart of Silicon Valley, California. This wasn't just an office. It was a cathedral of innovation, a glittering testament to human ingenuity. Its glass facade gleamed under the Californian sun, reflecting the endless blue sky, a beacon of progress in a world increasingly dominated by digital frontiers. Viridian Dynamics was more than a company. It was a cultural touchstone, a household name synonymous with cutting-edge software, intuitive user interfaces, and the seemingly boundless promise of a connected future. Its campus, sprawling and meticulously designed, boasted organic cafes, meditation pods, and even a vertical farm, all designed to foster creativity and collaboration. Yet, beneath this glossy veneer of progressive corporate culture lay a fiercely competitive environment, a rigid hierarchy where bold ideas from the lower ranks often struggled to break through the thick walls of established power and ingrained arrogance. Innovation was celebrated, but only if it originated from the right people, at the right time, and within the tightly controlled parameters set by the executive suite. Among the legion of brilliant minds populating Viridian Dynamics, Ilara Vance was a quietly formidable presence. At 28, she was a software engineer, a code whisperer, possessing an almost preternatural ability to navigate the labyrinthine complexities of digital architecture. Her colleagues recognized her technical prowess, the elegant simplicity of her solutions to intractable coding problems, yet they often overlooked her. Ilara was an introvert, her preference for the quiet logic of programming over the boisterous social dynamics of the office often mistaken for aloofness or a lack of ambition. She spoke softly, her observations delivered with a quiet precision that sometimes got lost in the cacophony of louder, more assertive voices. She was happiest buried deep in lines of code, her fingers dancing across the keyboard, unraveling intricate algorithms, or meticulously debugging complex systems. Her personal life mirrored her professional quietude. She lived in a modest apartment in San Jose, its interior sparse but meticulously organized, a stark contrast to the sprawling, opulent homes of many of her Silicon Valley peers. Her leisure time wasn't spent at tech industry mixers or lavish parties. Instead, she immersed herself in the shadowy world of online security forums, operating under a nondescript, anonymous handle. Here, she thrived, tackling complex bug bounty challenges, identifying critical vulnerabilities in major software systems for various tech companies in exchange for monetary rewards. These weren't just intellectual exercises. They were a source of quiet satisfaction, a proving ground for her extraordinary intuition. She possessed a rare, almost innate ability to discern subtle anomalies and hidden vulnerabilities within complex software frameworks. It wasn't merely logical analysis, it was a profound, almost sensory feeling for where the system was out of balance, where a tiny, seemingly insignificant deviation in data flow could indicate a gaping security flaw. It was a sixth sense for systemic weakness, a gift she cultivated in the quiet solitude of her evenings. Ilara's closest, most cherished connection was with her younger brother, Leo, who was on the autism spectrum. He lived with their aunt in a quieter part of California, but Ilara visited him every weekend, their hours spent on long, peaceful walks or building intricate Lego models. She was his protector, his confidant, his biggest advocate. Her desire to provide for him, to ensure he had every opportunity to thrive in a world that often misunderstood him, fueled her quiet ambition and her unwavering dedication to her work, giving her a purpose beyond the mere pursuit of professional advancement. She harbored a deep, abiding loyalty to those she cared about, a loyalty that extended to the intricate, often fragile systems she helped build. One particularly fraught Tuesday afternoon, the air in the Viridian Dynamics Innovation Hub crackled with tension. A critical software patch for their flagship Nexus OS was slated for release in less than 24 hours, but a persistent, maddening bug had surfaced, rendering a crucial communication module unstable. Senior engineers, their faces grim and streaked with exhaustion, huddled around whiteboards, furiously scribbling algorithms, their voices rising in frustration. Mark Peterson, Alara's direct manager, a man whose ambition often outstripped his technical acumen, barked orders, his face flushed. "We're losing time. People find it. We can't push this bug to millions of users." The room felt like a pressure cooker, the stakes immeasurably high. Reputations, careers, and potentially millions in revenue hung in the balance. Alara, typically relegated to background tasks, had been meticulously reviewing the code for hours, her unique intuition nagging at her. She saw not just lines of code, but the intricate dance of data, the subtle interplay of protocols, and she saw the flaw. It wasn't in the obvious places her more experienced colleagues were frantically searching. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible logical paradox embedded deep within a subroutine that managed asynchronous data streams. A simple off-by-one error in a loop, combined with a race condition, would lead to a catastrophic memory leak under specific, high-load scenarios. A silent killer of a bug. She stood hesitantly, a knot forming in her stomach. Mark Peterson, exhausted and irritable, barely acknowledged her presence. "What is it?" Vance were busy. Other engineers, too focused on their own frantic debugging, waved her off with dismissive gestures. But Alara, despite her intrinsic shyness and the implicit dismissal, felt the urgent pull of responsibility. She knew this bug could cripple the system, potentially exposing user data, or worse, leading to catastrophic system crashes for their enterprise clients. This was bigger than her own discomfort. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, her voice surprisingly steady, cutting through the chaotic murmurs. "The error isn't in the primary API, Mark," she stated, pointing to a specific block of code projected on the main screen. "It's here, in the async thread sync module. Line 1, 204. There's a race condition in the buffer allocation for the handle packet function. When max buffer size is exactly divisible by the incoming data block, the loop iterates one too many times, leading to an overflow and potential memory corruption. It's a classic off-by-one error coupled with an unhandled edge case." A hush fell over the room. Mark Peterson scoffed. "Vance, that's a legacy module. It's been stable for years. You're talking about a theoretical edge case." But one of the senior architects, a grizzled veteran named David Chen, his eyes narrowed, staring intently at the code Alara indicated. He quickly ran a simulated test, pushing the system to its precise breaking point based on Alara's hypothesis. The simulation crashed. A sharp intake of breath filled the room. "She's right," David Chen muttered, his voice filled with grudging respect. "Good God, it's been there all along. We would have launched a ticking time bomb." Mark Peterson's face turned an unhealthy shade of green. He had been moments from approving the flawed patch. Alara, without fanfare or seeking praise, calmly outlined the precise fix, demonstrating a mastery of intricate system logic that stunned many of her more experienced peers. The bug was quickly patched, the crisis averted. Alara didn't gloat. She simply returned to her desk, a quiet satisfaction settling over her. This was her save the cat moment, a small, unassuming act of technical bravery that solidified her moral compass and showcased her unparalleled problem-solving prowess, even as the professional credit was largely swept under the rug by her superiors. It was a silent testament to her unwavering commitment to the integrity of the system, and, by extension, the users who relied upon it. Her colleagues might have forgotten her name in the ensuing celebration, but her quiet act of brilliance had averted a multi-million-dollar disaster, proving her innate value to the company. Beyond her demonstrable coding skills and her quiet dedication, Alara harbored a unique, almost esoteric talent, one cultivated in the shadowy depths of the internet's bug bounty landscape, an uncanny knack for pattern recognition in digital anomalies, and a profound intuition for systemic vulnerabilities. She didn't just understand code, she felt its inherent logic, its strengths, and, most importantly, its subtle weaknesses. While others relied on automated scanners and conventional penetration testing, Ilara possessed a form of digital synesthesia. She could perceive the wrongness in a data stream, a discordant note in the symphony of information, a faint tremor in the structural integrity of a complex network. It was as if she could visualize the hidden pathways, the latent weaknesses, the invisible threads connecting seemingly disparate fragments of data. This wasn't a skill she had learned in a textbook. It was an innate gift honed by years of solitary exploration. She spent countless nights in the glow of her monitor, not just debugging, but actively seeking out novel attack vectors, exploring the dark corners of cybersecurity. She maintained a meticulously organized, encrypted personal database of obscure exploits, historical cyber attacks, and the almost poetic elegance of particularly insidious malware. Her anonymous online persona, Cipher Weaver, was legendary in certain underground ethical hacking circles, known for submitting highly sophisticated bug reports that stumped even seasoned cybersecurity firms. This personal pursuit, unknown to her colleagues and managers at Viridian Dynamics, was more than a hobby. It was a deeper calling, a relentless quest to understand the intricate, often fragile dance between security and vulnerability. This seed of a mystery, her almost mystical connection to the hidden vulnerabilities of digital systems, subtly woven into her character, promised to blossom into a pivotal force later in the narrative, a talent that would inevitably collide with the arrogance of those who failed to perceive the unseen threats she so clearly understood. It was a quiet power, waiting for the right moment to reveal its devastating efficacy. The sterile air of Viridian Dynamics, usually a predictable blend of server hums and hushed ambition, grew thick with a palpable sense of unease for Ilara Vance. A new directive had come down from the executive suite, one shrouded in an unusual level of secrecy and urgency. The company's flagship, Nexus OS Enterprise platform, the digital backbone for major corporations across the globe, was slated for a massive, unprecedented upgrade. This wasn't just a routine patch. It was an overhaul designed to integrate a proprietary AI learning module, promising unparalleled efficiency and predictive analytics. The project was codenamed Project Chimera, and its successful rollout was deemed critical for Viridian's stock performance and market dominance. Ilara, despite her proven track record in identifying critical bugs, felt an inexplicable premonition, a flicker of unease that she couldn't quite pinpoint. The timelines were impossibly tight. The security audits felt rushed, and there was a subtle disharmony in the otherwise precise orchestration of the development process. This project, she felt, was inherently off. Working late one unseasonably cool evening, long after the last of her colleagues had departed, leaving the vast office floor quiet save for the hum of distant servers, Ilara found herself deep within the intricate architecture of Project Chimera. Her task was a final, meticulous code review of the core authentication protocols. As she delved deeper, line by agonizing line, her unique intuition began to prickle. She wasn't merely reading code. She was feeling its vulnerabilities, sensing the subtle gaps, the almost imperceptible misalignments in the digital tapestry. And then, she found it. A gaping, critical flaw. It wasn't a simple coding error or an oversight. It was a sophisticated backdoor, subtly woven into the very fabric of the AI learning module's authentication system. This vulnerability, cleverly disguised as a redundant data validation protocol, allowed for unauthorized, encrypted access to the core Nexus OS network from an external, untraceable source. It was a digital ghost door, designed to be invisible to standard security scans, offering a direct, unfettered pathway to sensitive client data, intellectual property, and proprietary algorithms. The implication sent a cold dread through her. This wasn't just a bug, it was an intentional vulnerability, a deliberate act of sabotage designed to be exploited. It meant someone, from within or without, intended to cripple Viridian Dynamics. Ilara's immediate reaction was a blend of shock and professional alarm. Her fingers, usually nimble and precise, trembled slightly as she documented every detail of the vulnerability, creating an irrefutable log of its existence and potential impact. Her first instinct was to follow protocol, report it through the internal security channels. She drafted an urgent memo detailing the flaw with her usual meticulous precision and sent it up the chain of command, flagging it as critical, immediate action required. Hours passed, then a day. No response. Her email, flagged with such urgency, seemed to vanish into the corporate ether. She tried again, escalating her concerns to Mark Peterson, her direct manager. He dismissed her with a wave of his hand, barely looking up from his monitor. "Ilara, we're on a tight deadline. This project has been audited. Don't create problems where there aren't any. Stick to your assigned tasks." His tone was condescending, his gaze dismissive. He saw her as a competent but overly zealous junior engineer, prone to seeing ghosts in the machine. He had his own career to protect, and delays or unforeseen critical flaws at this late stage were simply not acceptable. Frustration simmered, quickly replaced by a growing sense of desperation. She knew the magnitude of this threat. If exploited, it could mean the literal collapse of Viridian Dynamics, devastating not just the company but impacting millions of users and countless businesses globally. Her conscience, honed by her innate drive for perfection and her deep loyalty to the integrity of the system she helped build, screamed at her to act. She tried another internal channel, contacting an anonymous ethics hotline, but received only an automated response. The institutional inertia, coupled with dismissive management, formed an insurmountable wall. In an act of profound desperation, driven by a powerful moral imperative that transcended her quiet, rule-abiding nature, Ilara decided to bypass all protocols. She composed a concise, highly technical email detailing the precise location and nature of the backdoor, its potential exploitability, and the catastrophic consequences if ignored. She attached her meticulous documentation and encrypted it with a standard, but strong, algorithm. With a trembling finger, she addressed it directly to Mr. Julian Thorne, the CEO of Viridian Dynamics. To ensure her message couldn't be easily traced back to her, she used a secure, untraceable anonymous email service, one she had used sparingly for reporting major zero-day vulnerabilities in the bug bounty world. It was a terrifying, career-ending risk. She knew that, if discovered, she could be accused of insubordination, or worse, corporate espionage. Her internal conflict was immense, the fear of personal ruin warring fiercely with the imperative to protect. She spent a sleepless night, pacing her small apartment, the glowing cursor of her computer screen burning into her retina, the email sitting in her drafts. Finally, as dawn broke, painting the Silicon Valley sky in hues of soft pink and gray, she hit send. The next morning, the polished glass and steel of Viridian Dynamics offered no shelter from the brewing storm. Ilara arrived at her desk, a knot of dread tightening in her stomach, half expecting to be called into Mr. Thorne's office, half hoping her email had been dismissed as a prank. She got her answer, but not in the way she anticipated. The news broke like a thunderclap. Omnicorp, Viridian's fiercest rival, had launched a devastating, surgical cyber attack. It wasn't a brute force assault. It was a precise exploitation of the exact backdoor Ilara had warned about. The breach was total and catastrophic. Millions of confidential client records, including sensitive financial data and proprietary trade secrets, were siphoned off in a matter of hours. Crucially, Omnicorp also stole the core algorithms of Project Chimera's AI learning module, essentially neutering Viridian's most ambitious and expensive innovation before it even launched. The financial cost was immediate and staggering. Viridian's stock plummeted, wiping billions off its market capitalization. The reputational damage was immeasurable, a scarlet letter branded across their once pristine image of impregnable security. Chaos erupted throughout the company. Executives stormed through the halls, their faces pale with rage and disbelief. Media vans swarmed the campus gates, their reporters clamoring for answers. Amidst the pandemonium, Ilara's anonymous email, the very one she had sent in desperation, was leaked. Not just to the public, But internally, within Viridian Dynamics, its anonymity had been compromised. A high-level internal investigation, spearheaded by Mr. Julian Thorne, quickly concluded that the only way Omnicorp could have known about such a sophisticated, hidden backdoor was through an internal source. The finger of blame, carefully orchestrated by forces yet unknown to Alara, pointed squarely at her. The very act she had taken to prevent disaster was twisted into a damning indictment. She was publicly identified as the sender of the anonymous email. Her name leaked to the press alongside accusations of corporate sabotage and collusion with Omnicorp. Mr. Julian Thorne, antagonist Type B, appearing on national television. His face a mask of feigned outrage and controlled fury, pointedly stated, "We have identified an internal actor who attempted to disrupt our operations, and then, suspiciously, was the only one who claimed knowledge of this flaw before the attack. We will ensure this betrayal is met with the full force of justice." He didn't mention that he had ignored her warning. He merely implied her complicity, twisting her proactive report into evidence of guilt. Alara was immediately escorted from the premises by stern-faced security guards, her employee badge confiscated. She was placed on indefinite administrative leave, her access to all company systems revoked. Legal papers followed swiftly, notifying her of pending civil lawsuits for gross negligence and corporate espionage, with the potential for criminal charges looming. Her bank accounts were frozen, her personal computer seized for forensic analysis. Her carefully constructed world, her quiet life of diligent coding and solitary purpose, shattered around her. She was adrift, publicly shamed, professionally ruined, and legally ensnared. The weight of this injustice, crushing and suffocating, threatened to consume her. She could not return to her quiet life, could not simply fade into anonymity. Her name was now synonymous with betrayal, her future jeopardized, and her integrity shredded. This was her point of no return. She had been pushed to the absolute edge, stripped of everything. There was no going back to the way things were. She had to fight, not just for her own freedom, but for the truth, to expose the real traitors, and to clear her name, a name that once stood for quiet brilliance, now smeared with the foulest accusations. The quiet engineer, once content to work in the shadows, was now forced into the glaring spotlight, compelled to confront the very system that had so cruelly betrayed her. Her fight was no longer just about code. It was about survival, honor, and the desperate quest for justice in a world that refused to see beyond the fabricated narrative. The air at Viridian Dynamics, once a familiar, if somewhat impersonal, environment for Alara Vance, now felt thick with an oppressive chill, a suffocating mix of suspicion and contempt. She walked the sterile hallways of the company's internal investigation wing, her every step echoing with the unspoken accusations of her peers. The whispers, like razor wire, cut deep saboteur, traitor. The reason our stock tanked. Her bank accounts were still frozen, her personal devices confiscated, and the legal notices for civil and potential criminal charges piled up on her kitchen counter. A tangible reminder of the crushing weight of public shame and the searing injustice of being branded a corporate pariah. The internal investigation, driven by Mr. Julian Thorne's public accusations, loomed like a dark, inescapable shadow, threatening to forever stain her name and ruin her career. Every piece of official evidence, meticulously gathered and presented, seemed to point to her culpability, painting a damning picture of an employee who had either maliciously caused the breach or colluded with a rival. She was isolated, her desperate attempts to explain the true nature of the backdoor dismissed as convoluted excuses, her pleas for a deeper, unbiased forensic analysis ignored. The system, it seemed, had already made up its mind, eager to find a scapegoat for a multi-million-dollar disaster. Her only lifeline, thin as a spider's thread, was Ms. Vivian Sterling, the formidable head of Viridian Dynamics' cybersecurity operations. At 45, Vivian possessed an analytical mind that cut through bureaucracy and corporate rhetoric with surgical precision. She was known for her unwavering dedication to data integrity and her almost ruthless pursuit of truth, qualities that often made her unpopular in the more politically charged echelons of the company. She carried herself with an air of cool competence, her dark, intelligent eyes missing nothing. While initially, like many, she harbored deep suspicions about Alara, the anonymous email, the timing of the breach. It all looked damning. A nagging professional instinct told her there was more to this story. Her gut, honed by years of navigating complex cyber threats and corporate espionage, whispered that the official narrative felt too clean, too convenient. The sophistication of the attack, particularly how precisely it exploited the very flaw Alara had described, suggested a level of inside knowledge that didn't quite fit the profile of a disgruntled junior engineer. Vivian knew the internal politics, the immense pressure from Mr. Julian Thorne to find a swift resolution. But her commitment to genuine cybersecurity meant she couldn't simply accept the easiest explanation. She scheduled a final make-or-break interrogation, not in the formal, intimidating interview room, but in a small, windowless office at the back of the Viridian Dynamics' heavily secured server farm. It was a sterile, impersonal space, filled only with a metal table and two uncomfortable chairs. Yet for Alara, it represented her last, desperate chance to clear her name. The interrogation began with the predictable questions, the standard review of Alara's duties, her activities leading up to the breach, and the sending of the anonymous email. Alara answered stoically, her voice flat, devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the churning anxiety within her. Vivian Sterling pushed a large, high-resolution digital schematic of the Nexus OS enterprise architecture across the table towards her, its complex layers of code, network protocols, and data flow pathways marked with precise system identifiers. "Ms. Vance," she began, her voice calm but firm, her eyes fixed on Alara's. "Walk me through it again, from the moment you discovered this back door. Every detail. Show me the specific lines of code. Show me the exploit path. Show me your email." She leaned back, observing Alara keenly, searching for any telltale sign of deception, any flicker of guilt, or even a hint of the panic that usually accompanied a liar caught in their own web. Alara stared at the schematic, her gaze unfocused for a moment, then sharpened. Her mind, under the immense pressure, retreated into its unique, almost supernaturally vivid memory palace, transforming the abstract lines of code into a living, breathing, interconnected organism. The images of the back door, the frantic hours spent documenting it, the chilling precision of Omnicorp's attack, usually a source of crippling pain and public humiliation, now became a detailed, almost holographic reconstruction. She wasn't merely recalling. She was re-experiencing the digital flow, the subtle anomalies, the almost musical disharmony that had alerted her to the flaw. She closed her eyes for a brief second, then opened them, her gaze piercing, focused not on the static schematic, but on the swirling data in her mind's eye. She didn't touch the holographic projection, but her finger hovered above it, tracing invisible lines. The vulnerability wasn't in the primary authentication module. "Ms. Sterling," she began, her voice low and steady, gaining a quiet intensity that belied her usual shyness. It was embedded deep within the AI learning module's adaptive query resolver, specifically in the process encrypted payload function, line 2873. There's an undocumented recursive call to a deprecated legacy.decode stream subroutine. This subroutine, marked for deletion in the original specs, wasn't actually removed. It was repurposed with a highly sophisticated, multi-layered XOR cipher, disguised as a redundancy check for high-volume data packets. Vivian Sterling's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. She knew the legacy decode stream was supposed to be gone. The mention of a multi-layered XOR cipher, typically reserved for highly classified military-grade encryption, was a detail that instantly piqued her professional curiosity. No ordinary coder, let alone a disgruntled one, would invent such a specific, technically accurate detail. Alara continued, her voice gaining a quiet, almost detached precision, as if she were dissecting a complex organism. The exploit wasn't a brute force attack, it was a digital ghosting technique. Omnicorp sent a series of tiny, almost invisible data packets, less than 1 KB each, from a rotating cluster of anonymized proxy servers over a period of weeks. Each packet was designed to gradually prime the legacy decode-end stream through subtle buffer overflows, weakening the XOR cipher without triggering alarms. Think of it like dripping water on a stone. Each drop is insignificant, but over time, it carves a path. She then pointed to a specific logical pathway on the schematic. The critical exploit happened at 02:17:34 a.m. PST. Omnicorp sent a final, precisely crafted packet that acted as a Trojan horse byte. This byte, when processed by the compromised legacy decode monitor stream, completed the XOR cipher, granting them full root-level access to the Nexus OS core. The data logs would show it as a successful authentication attempt from a seemingly benign internal IP, because the backdoor had bypassed all conventional security checks. Vivian Sterling leaned forward, her initial skepticism replaced by a growing astonishment. Alara was describing microscopic details, intricate digital nuances that no ordinary human could recall, let alone describe with such terrifying precision after a traumatic event. She was recounting the exact timing, the specific byte count, the precise nature of the exploit. This wasn't imagination. This was an almost supernatural recall, a mind that processed digital information at a level Vivian hadn't encountered in her illustrious career. She pulled up the raw network logs from her secure terminal, cross-referencing Alara's descriptions. The small, intermittent data packets, the rotating proxy servers, the specific timing of the final exploit, even the successful authentication attempt from an internal IP, previously dismissed as an anomaly, all were there, exactly as Alara had described. The logs had the data. Alara had the profound, intuitive understanding of what it all meant. The two perfectly aligned. A cold, hard certainty settled in Vivian's gut. Alara Vance was telling the absolute truth. And if she was telling the truth, then something far more insidious than a mere cyber attack had occurred. Someone had deliberately planted that back door. Someone had then used Alara's warning email to frame her, creating a perfect scapegoat. Vivian now understood that Alara was not a saboteur. She was a key, and her mind held the blueprint of a deeper, darker corporate conspiracy. She was the only one who could see the invisible threads of betrayal. Vivian Sterling, the first to truly see the light, knew that her career, possibly her life, was on the line, but her resolve to uncover the truth, to protect the integrity of her company, and to vindicate this brilliant, unjustly accused young woman, solidified into an unbreakable resolve. However, their private breakthrough was not entirely unobserved. Mr. Julian Thorne, antagonist Type B, driven by his consuming arrogance, his fear of public disgrace, and a desperate need to maintain his flawless leadership facade, had implemented a system of pervasive, clandestine surveillance within the executive offices and even in key investigation rooms. His ambition and his deeply ingrained prejudice against anyone who dared to question his authority or expose his oversight fueled his paranoia. He had installed a covert audio-video feed in the server farm investigation room, a blatant breach of privacy and protocol that allowed him to monitor key interviews without official record. From his remote, opulent office, bathed in the glow of multiple monitors displaying stock tickers and corporate reports, he had watched the entire session unfold. He saw Alara's almost detached, chillingly precise recitation of digital details. He heard Vivian Sterling's growing astonishment, her hushed murmurs of recognition as she cross-referenced Alara's words with the raw network logs. Julian Thorne didn't process it as proof of Alara's innocence. Instead, his mind, already twisted by ego and a desperate need to avoid blame, interpreted it through a lens of profound threat. How could this woman know so much? Why was she so precise? He saw it not as Alara's unique ability, but as evidence of a deeper, more dangerous knowledge, a knowledge that could expose his own negligence in ignoring her initial warning. Worse, it could expose his own connections to the internal elements who had benefited from the breach. He didn't want the truth. He wanted a scapegoat. Alara's detailed account of the back door, instead of clearing her name, simply confirmed Julian Thorne's darkest fear. Alara was a loose end, a walking, talking threat to his meticulously crafted image of an infallible CEO. He couldn't risk Alara digging deeper, revealing the full extent of the conspiracy, a truth that Julian Thorne knew, in his darkest heart, involved betrayals far closer to home than Omnicorp. He knew Alara had to be silenced, permanently, before she could expose the true orchestrators of the Viridian Dynamics catastrophe. This was the moment the antagonist Type B witnessed the unveiling, not as vindication, but as a dire threat, confirming his destructive agenda to ensure Alara's complete and utter demise, even if it meant destroying an innocent life. The silent, meticulous observation sealed Alara's fate, propelling her into a far more dangerous game than she could have ever imagined. A game where the lines between corporate espionage and personal survival blurred into a terrifying reality. The pristine, high-tech facade of Viridian Dynamics, once a symbol of innovation, now felt like a towering, impenetrable fortress to Alara Vance. The quiet, sterile confines of the CID office, where her talent had briefly shone, were now a distant memory. Instead, a chilling, omnipresent threat loomed. Major Julian Thorne's insidious campaign against her had escalated beyond mere corporate dismissal. It had morphed into a full-blown character assassination, punctuated by the relentless drumbeat of impending legal action. She wasn't just unemployed. She was being systematically destroyed. The evidence of her innocence, meticulously detailed in her extraordinary recall, was being expertly undermined, twisted, or simply made to disappear. Key network logs that corroborated her story suddenly had corruption errors, rendering them unusable. Witness statements from junior engineers who had heard her initial concerns were subtly altered or deemed unreliable. The internal investigation, ostensibly ongoing, was a meticulously choreographed charade designed to lead to one inevitable, damning conclusion: Alara Vance's criminal prosecution for corporate sabotage and industrial espionage. The sheer audacity of the manipulation, spearheaded by Julian Thorne's vast influence and his desperate need to maintain his personal reputation, sent a cold shiver down Alara's spine. The pressure on Alara mounted with each passing day, like a vice slowly tightening. The public outcry, fueled by carefully leaked, distorted narratives from Viridian's PR department, solidified into widespread condemnation. Online forums, once a source of quiet intellectual camaraderie, now buzzed with vicious accusations against the Viridian traitor. She was bombarded with hate mail, anonymous threats, and public shaming campaigns on social media. Her last remaining friends from Viridian, fearing for their own careers, slowly distanced themselves. Her lawyer, a weary public defender from the few pro bono corporate defense firms willing to take on a case against a tech giant, advised her to take a plea deal, to accept a lesser charge in exchange for avoiding a lengthy, high-profile criminal trial. Ms. Vance, the lawyer had urged, his voice heavy with resignation during a brief, sterile phone call. The system is rigged against you. Mr. Thorne has too much power, too many connections. You can't fight this. Despair, cold and insidious, began to creep into Alara's heart. She felt utterly abandoned, her spirit slowly eroding under the relentless assault of injustice. She saw the faces of countless anonymous users, their data exposed, their trust betrayed, and a crushing sense of responsibility weighed on her. She had tried to warn them, and now she was being crucified for it. Vivian Sterling, the helper, however, refused to yield. Her moral compass, sharpened by Alara's unwavering truth and her own professional integrity, now pointed relentlessly towards the conspiracy. She knew she couldn't fight Julian Thorne through official channels. His tentacles reached too deep into the corporate and even legal hierarchies. He had too many allies in high places, too much money to throw at silencing dissent. She had to think outside the box, to take a monumental, career-ending risk that bordered on the illegal. One clandestine evening, under the pretense of a late-night emergency security audit, Vivian slipped past the layers of corporate security at a discreet, almost abandoned data center on the outskirts of Sunnyvale. She found Alara there, a solitary figure hunched over a borrowed laptop, frantically trying to find some digital footprint, any shred of untainted evidence. Alara looked gaunt, her eyes shadowed by exhaustion, but her resolve still flickered. Vivian's face was a pale mask in the dim, flickering light of the server racks. "Alara," she whispered, her voice urgent, barely audible over the hum of the servers. "They're going to railroad you. All the evidence I have is being systematically destroyed, or it's too circumstantial to stand up in court. But I found something else, something damning." She presented Alara with a series of highly encrypted, time-stamped log files she had secretly siphoned from a compromised, deep-layer server that Julian Thorne thought was secure. "There are anomalies here," Vivian explained, pointing to complex data packets on her tablet. "Subtle network traffic patterns that correspond with a completely unknown, highly sophisticated malware signature. It's not standard Omnicorp. It's something deeper. And I've detected a very faint, almost invisible, encrypted communication signal, originating from a secure private server farm owned by a shell corporation, active only hours before the initial breach." Vivian's voice dropped to a whisper, filled with a grim realization. "This isn't just about corporate espionage, Alara. This is about a much larger, darker conspiracy. That malware. It's designed not just to steal data, but to permanently compromise the network's integrity, to create a backdoor within the backdoor, ensuring long-term control and the encryption key to those communications. It's hidden in a specific, obscure sequence of binary code that only someone with an intuitive understanding of the Viridian OS architecture could find. Someone who built it. Someone like you." The audacity of the betrayal, the sheer depth of the conspiracy that Vivian was unearthing, stunned Alara. It wasn't just Julian Thorne trying to protect his ego. It was a calculated, multi-layered attack with far more sinister implications. A flicker of hope, hot and fierce, ignited within her. She understood. This was why her feeling about the system, her innate ability to detect these subtle digital anomalies, was so crucial. It was the key. "What do we do?" "Vivian," she asked, her voice low and steady, a new resolve hardening her features. Vivian laid out her audacious, almost suicidal plan. "You have to go back in, to the core servers of Viridian Dynamics. You have to find the specific digital artifacts, the unique patterns left by this new, deeper malware, the final, crucial segments of the binary key that only your mind can recognize within the system's own structure. Something they left behind. Something that would complete the picture, the irrefutable proof. Something that matches what you saw, what you felt." The very idea was a living nightmare. The core servers of Viridian Dynamics, housed deep within the company's heavily guarded data center, were not just a physical location. They were the digital graveyard of her reputation, the very place where her name had been smeared. It was the arena of her deepest professional shame, the place where she had been branded a traitor. Returning there would be the ultimate test of her courage, a harrowing journey back into the heart of her professional hell. This was her gauntlet, a symbolic confrontation with the very place that had broken her, and now, paradoxically, offered her only path to redemption. She would have to revisit every agonizing line of code, every haunting memory of dismissive managers and lost opportunities, in the place where her honor had been brutally stripped away. The task was to be executed in absolute, terrifying solitude. Vivian Sterling, though instrumental in planning her clandestine re-entry and providing encrypted tools, could not accompany her. Ilara would be a phantom, a ghost navigating hostile digital territory, hunted by the very corporate security systems she had once helped build, and by the shadowy forces that had orchestrated the initial breach. "I can get you in," Vivian explained, her voice hushed, her face grim. "But once you're past the perimeter, you're on your own. No direct comms, no backup. You'll be off the grid, a digital ghost. If anything goes wrong, if you trip an alarm, if they even suspect you're inside, I can't help you. You'll be caught, and the charges will stick. They'll throw away the key." The sheer isolation of the mission was designed to maximize the dramatic tension, placing Ilara in a position of complete vulnerability. She would have to rely solely on her wits, her unparalleled technical skills, and her extraordinary, almost supernatural, ability to read the digital landscape, to discern the unseen vulnerabilities and the hidden truths. The ticking clock, a relentless invisible executioner, began its chilling countdown. Vivian had discovered a highly volatile, self-destructing data packet within Omnicorp's internal network. This packet, she believed, contained the complete, irrefutable evidence of the betrayal-detailed logs of communication between Julian Thorne's inner circle and Omnicorp, financial transactions detailing illicit payments, and the precise algorithms used to exploit the initial backdoor and install the new, deeper malware. However, the data was protected by a sophisticated, quantum-encrypted algorithm. It would be accessible for only 48 hours from the moment Vivian initiated a decoy download on a public server, after which it would be permanently wiped, leaving no trace. Ilara had to locate specific, unique digital markers within Viridian's own core system, the anomalies in the code, the peculiar data flow patterns, the precise sequence of the new malware's footprint, that would serve as the final, crucial keys to decrypting Omnicorp's data packet. These markers, combined with Ilara's intuitive understanding of the system and the subtle, embedded clues she had recalled during her interrogation with Vivian, would unlock the full truth. If she failed to find the digital evidence within the brutal 48-hour window, the digital proof would vanish forever, leaving her with no means of vindication. Her reputation, her freedom, and the future of Viridian Dynamics hinged on her ability to complete this impossible mission under the most extreme, time-sensitive pressure imaginable. The ultimate test was underway, and Ilara Vance, the accused corporate saboteur, was about to walk through a digital hell, alone, to reclaim her honor and expose the truth. The pervasive hum of servers was Ilara's only companion as she moved through the darkened, cavernous depths of Viridian Dynamics' primary data center. Every polished floor tile, every glowing indicator light on the server racks, felt like a silent witness to her desperate gamble. Her body, already pushed to its limits by the stress and the clandestine infiltration, screamed in protest with every strained movement. Yet, her mind, fueled by an icy resolve and the spectral faces of Julian Thorne's public accusations, burned with a desperate clarity. She was deep within the digital heart of the company that had betrayed her, the very core of the system she had helped build. And the relentless 48-hour clock of Vivian Sterling's encrypted data packet was ticking, a silent countdown to her ultimate defeat or her hard-won vindication. Julian Thorne's treachery and the shadowy network that had exploited Viridian felt like a physical presence, a suffocating shroud over the digital landscape. The climax, every action detailed. Ilara moved like a phantom, a digital whisperer navigating a labyrinth of cold steel and blinking lights. Her eyes, sharper than any automated scanner, darted across terminal screens, deciphering lines of code at a speed that would baffle most experts. She wasn't just looking at data, she was feeling its flow, translating its subtle whispers into a language of betrayal and opportunity. Her fingers, nimble and precise, danced across the keyboard of a concealed diagnostic terminal. She bypassed a series of advanced biometric locks by exploiting a known, yet rarely triggered, firmware bug in the retinal scanners, a flaw she had noted years ago during a system audit, knowing that under specific power fluctuations, the scanner's buffer could be momentarily overloaded, causing a brief, exploitable authentication bypass. She moved with an almost balletic grace, her movements fluid and efficient as she navigated the complex physical security of the data center. She bypassed the main firewalls, not by brute force, but by meticulously reconstructing a ghost route through a series of long-dormant, unmonitored legacy VPN tunnels that Julian Thorne's team had overlooked. It was a digital backroad, built into the original infrastructure, but left unpatched and forgotten, a testament to her profound understanding of the system's complete history. She meticulously documented every step with the encrypted, miniature capture device Vivian had provided, her screen a blur of code, network schematics, and rapidly scrolling log files. Each keystroke was precise, each command executed with the unwavering confidence of a master artisan, her objective the deepest core servers, where the new, insidious malware was embedded. She reached the nerve center of Viridian's operations, a room chilled to Arctic temperatures, filled with towering server racks emitting a low, powerful hum. Here, she noticed a subtle but critical anomaly in the ambient power readings, a minuscule fluctuation inconsistent with normal server load. Her intuition screamed. This wasn't just a physical space, it was a digital ecosystem. And the power fluctuations were the telltale sign of the new malware quietly, continuously siphoning processing power for its covert operations. She located the specific server cluster. Deep within its core, she found it a complex, multi-layered logic bomb, hidden within a seemingly innocuous system update package. This wasn't just malware. It was a sophisticated, self-replicating algorithm designed not only to exfiltrate the remaining high-value intellectual property, the cutting-edge patents for quantum computing, but also to completely wipe Viridian's central database, leaving no trace of the attack or its perpetrators. It was a digital scorched earth policy. She identified the new malware's unique signature pattern, a series of cascading recursive calls that created a fractal-like digital footprint, incredibly complex and designed to evade detection by standard antivirus software. She painstakingly photographed it, capturing every line of its insidious code, every register value, every timestamp. Then, she found the final piece of the puzzle. Buried deep within the malware's initialization sequence, carefully obfuscated within seemingly random lines of binary data, was the encryption key. It wasn't a standard alphanumeric string. It was a series of specific, non-standard instruction sets, a digital fingerprint that mirrored the unique way Julian Thorne's development team had initially designed Viridian's earliest network protocols. Only someone with an intimate, almost intuitive knowledge of that unique, archaic protocol, someone who had dissected it down to its very core, like Alara had in her bug bounty days, would recognize it as a key. This was the exact digital marker Vivian needed to unlock the larger conspiracy. Each discovery was a nail in the coffin of Julian Thorne and his co-conspirators, a piece of the horrifying puzzle. Her breath hitched in her throat, a mix of grim satisfaction and renewed determination. She was finding the truth, but it was a truth steeped in the betrayal of trust and the theft of innovation, the bated breath moment. As Alara began to transfer the hard-won evidence to Vivian's remote, secure server, a chilling red light flickered on a nearby status panel. Intruder alert. Section Delta 7. Main server room. Her heart leaped into her throat. She heard the distant, muffled voices of security guards, their footsteps echoing through the data center, growing louder. She had tripped an unseen sensor, likely a new biometric tripwire installed after the initial breach. She wasn't just exposed. She was surrounded. Suddenly, the screen of her diagnostic terminal froze. A message flashed. Access denied. System locked. Security override initiated. Omnicorp, or rather, the internal collaborators still loyal to Marcus Thorne, had detected her presence and launched a counteroffensive. They were shutting down access, locking her out, trapping her inside the network. The transfer bar on Vivian's remote connection dropped to 0. She had been moments from completing the upload. The clock on the self-destructing data packet from Vivian's end was still ticking, only minutes remaining. All her efforts, all her pain, all her hope gone, locked away in an inaccessible digital prison. Despair, a crushing, suffocating wave, washed over her. She was losing everything. Again. This was it. The breach had claimed her twice. She could hear the heavy thud of approaching footsteps, the sharp click of security firearms being readied. She closed her eyes, preparing for the inevitable capture, the bitter taste of defeat coating her tongue. But then, the raw memory of Mark Peterson's dismissive wave, of Julian Thorne's condemning words on national television, surged through her, igniting a primal, unyielding fury. No, not like this. She would not let their lies prevail. She would not let Marcus Thorne win. She opened her eyes, a desperate resolve hardening her features. Ignoring the rapidly approaching footsteps, ignoring the frantic blips on the security panel, she launched herself into a final, desperate act of digital defiance. She remembered a long-forgotten, highly complex exploit from her Cipher Weaver days, a legendary zero-day vulnerability in a specific network router firmware she had discovered but never publicly disclosed. It was an exploit so intricate, so niche, that only a handful of people in the world understood its potential. It allowed for a brief, almost instantaneous protocol inversion, temporarily reversing the flow of data within a network segment, essentially turning the attacker's own security measures against them. With a series of lightning-fast commands, her fingers a blur on the keyboard, she injected a carefully crafted snippet of code. The screen flickered wildly, lines of green and red text flashing across it. For a terrifying second, nothing happened. Then, with a sudden, triumphant surge, the access denied message dissolved, replaced by a torrent of outgoing data. The transfer bar on Vivian's remote connection surged, climbing rapidly. She had created a temporary, inverted data tunnel, forcing the locked system to send the data instead of blocking it. The critical evidence, including the full log of the new malware and the decryption key, flowed through the digital backdoor she had just created, directly to Vivian's waiting server. Her computer screen flashed triumphantly. Data upload complete. Flaw patched. New logic bomb neutralized. Exactly 000001 on Vivian's clock. The precise moment Omnicorp's self-destructing data packet would have vanished. She heard a shout. The door burst open, revealing armed security personnel, their flashlights blinding her. She dropped the diagnostic terminal, her mission accomplished, a quiet, fierce satisfaction in her heart. She was captured, but she had won. The digital war, at least this battle, was over. Hours later, at the high-stakes, nationally televised press conference held in the grand auditorium of Viridian Dynamics, the atmosphere was a tense, suffocating coil of anticipation. Mr. Julian Thorne, his face a mask of controlled disdain, stood at the podium, flanked by his legal team, prepared to deliver his carefully rehearsed narrative of overcoming internal saboteurs and malicious rivals. The prosecution had just delivered its damning summation, painting Alara Vance as a cunning traitor. The media, initially primed to accept Julian Thorne's narrative, shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing an underlying tension. Then, the side doors of the auditorium burst open. Lieutenant Colonel Evelyn Reed, the helper, now fully reinstated and promoted for her relentless pursuit of justice, strode in, her eyes blazing with an unyielding purpose, flanked by federal agents, not just Viridian security. In her hands, she clutched a thick dossier, and on a massive screen behind the podium, the digital display flickered to life. "Ladies and gentlemen," she declared, her voice clear and resonant, cutting through the murmurs. "I have new evidence, irrefutable evidence that proves Ms. Alara Vance's complete innocence and exposes the true orchestrators of the Viridian Dynamics breach." She presented the high-resolution digital captures Alara had retrieved, the specific, unique footprint of the new advanced logic bomb malware, its hidden fractal signature, and the archaic digital fingerprint encryption key embedded within its code. She explained how Ilara's extraordinary intuition had allowed her to pinpoint the precise location of these elusive digital artifacts, how they corresponded to the encrypted communications she had intercepted, and how the system's own complex architecture had provided the final, crucial keys for decryption. The digital evidence, now fully decoded, thanks to Ilara's perilous infiltration, flashed onto the screen a detailed log of communications between Mr. Marcus Thorne, antagonist Type A, the ruthlessly ambitious CEO of Omnicorp and Julian Thorne's younger brother, and a shadowy network of corrupt corporate officials and black hat hackers. The data included precise timelines of the attacks, detailed instructions for implanting the back door, and crucial financial ledgers detailing multi-million-dollar payments to shell corporations and anonymous accounts linked not just to Omnicorp, but also to several top-tier executives within Viridian Dynamics itself, individuals who had actively conspired with Marcus Thorne to facilitate the breach from within, weakening the company for a hostile takeover. The final damning entries were specific directives from Marcus Thorne to his internal operatives at Viridian, instructing them to ensure Ilara Vance's email is leaked and she is fully discredited. The room erupted in a horrified gasp. The true depth of the betrayal, the chilling revelation that the CEO's own brother and his trusted lieutenants had orchestrated the demise of Viridian, settled like a heavy shroud. Julian Thorne, their very own CEO, had been a pawn in his own brother's game, his pride exploited to blind him to the truth. A collective gasp, a visceral wave of shock and disbelief, swept through the auditorium. The air crackled with a sudden, horrifying realization. The assembled journalists, initially skeptical, visibly recoiled, their faces shifting from disinterest to utter astonishment, then to profound, simmering outrage. The employees of Viridian Dynamics, who had endured months of uncertainty and had initially believed the accusations against Ilara, now wept openly, not in grief for their losses, but in a searing, purifying rage at the monstrous betrayal from within their own ranks, by the very people they had trusted. Mr. Julian Thorne's carefully constructed facade crumbled. His face, usually impassive and arrogant, blanched to an ashen gray. His eyes, wide with a chilling mixture of fear and disbelief, darted wildly between the damning evidence on the screen and Vivian Sterling's resolute gaze. He tried to speak, but only a strangled, guttural sound escaped his throat. He slumped against the podium, his body shaking uncontrollably, his meticulously maintained composure utterly shattered. The powerful, respected CEO, who had wielded his influence like a weapon, was exposed not as a cunning mastermind, but as a blind, arrogant fool, a pawn in his own brother's grand scheme. The realization of his complete and utter undoing, his negligence and his family's treason laid bare for all to see, hit him with the force of a physical blow. He covered his face with trembling hands, utterly disgraced. Ilara Vance, bruised but standing tall, her eyes fixed on the disgraced CEO, felt a wave of profound vindication wash over her. The whispers had ceased. The stares were no longer those of contempt, but of awe, remorse, and overwhelming respect. She was no longer a saboteur. She was a hero. The raw, guttural cries of traitors and disgrace from the employees, directed not at her, but at Julian Thorne and the implicated executives, were the sweetest symphony. The auditorium, once a crucible of her condemnation, erupted in chaos, a righteous clamor for justice and accountability. This was not merely the end of an investigation. It was the raw, emotional triumph of truth over deception, of courage over corporate arrogance, a profound moment of societal recognition for Ilara Vance, the quiet engineer who had walked through a digital hell and returned with the damning truth. Her honor and the integrity of Viridian Dynamics was finally, undeniably, reclaimed. The chaotic fervor of the press conference, the raw outpouring of public fury and corporate outrage, eventually receded like a powerful tide, leaving behind a transformed landscape for Viridian Dynamics. The swift, decisive action that followed Alara Vance's undeniable vindication was a testament to the shocking clarity and irrefutable nature of the digital evidence she had retrieved. The logic bomb, malware, a sophisticated, deeper layer of attack designed to wipe Viridian's data and steal its quantum computing patents, was neutralized within hours of Alara's successful infiltration. The insidious network that Mr. Marcus Thorne, antagonist Type A, had orchestrated within Viridian Dynamics, a cancer of corporate espionage and betrayal, was systematically dismantled in a series of swift, targeted arrests and internal purges. The impact resonated far beyond the confines of a single press conference. It exposed deep-seated vulnerabilities within corporate governance and cybersecurity, underscoring the chilling reality that betrayal could fester at the highest echelons of even the most reputable companies. The repercussions for those who had so blindly or maliciously condemned Alara were profound and absolute. Mr. Marcus Thorne, the ruthlessly ambitious CEO of Omnicorp and the true mastermind behind the corporate espionage and sabotage against Viridian Dynamics, was arrested immediately following Vivian Sterling's devastating presentation. Stripped of his lavish corporate lifestyle and his carefully cultivated image, he was formally charged with multiple counts of industrial espionage, theft of intellectual property, conspiracy to commit fraud, and various federal hacking offenses. His trial, expedited by the overwhelming, undeniable digital evidence and the testimony of his now cooperating former lieutenants, was a grim spectacle for the business world, broadcast across every major financial news network. The once feared titan of industry, whose very name had once symbolized aggressive, innovative leadership, became a byword for ultimate corporate malfeasance. His vast, ill-gotten fortune, accumulated through years of illicit dealings and funneled into complex offshore trusts and shell corporations, was meticulously traced by federal investigators and seized by the U.S. Department of Justice, leaving him utterly destitute. He stood before the federal court a broken man, his arrogance replaced by a haunting emptiness, convicted on all counts. Marcus Thorne was sentenced to multiple consecutive decades in a maximum security federal penitentiary, a concrete tomb where he would spend the remainder of his days in desolate isolation, stripped of all power and influence. He was a forgotten, unmourned figure, his name synonymous with the deepest form of corporate dishonor, a chilling testament to the catastrophic self-destruction wrought by unchecked greed and profound moral decay. His legacy was one of utter annihilation, a complete and total fall from grace that left no stone unturned in its crushing finality. Mr. Julian Thorne, antagonist Type B, the former CEO of Viridian Dynamics, who had initially championed Alara's persecution, underwent a profound and very public journey of introspection and repentance. The evidence presented at the press conference, undeniably clear and utterly damning, had shattered his rigid worldview. He saw the horrific consequences of his ingrained prejudices, his over-reliance on superficial appearances, and his unwavering belief in his own infallible judgment. The public outcry for accountability had been immense, and Julian Thorne, unlike his brother Marcus, possessed a true, albeit buried, sense of corporate responsibility and personal honor. He knew he had to confront his failings, not just for the public, but for his own conscience and for the integrity of the company he genuinely, if misguidedly, believed he was protecting. In a somber, nationally televised interview from his now empty executive office, a stark contrast to his earlier confident appearances, Julian Thorne, his face etched with genuine remorse, spoke directly to the public and, most importantly, to Alara. "I stand before you today," he began, his voice hoarse with emotion, "as a leader who failed. I failed Ms. Alara Vance. I failed the dedicated employees of Viridian Dynamics. I allowed my pride, my own ingrained biases against unconventional thinking, and my fear of disruption to blind me to the truth. I dismissed a brilliant engineer's desperate warning, and for that, I offer my deepest, most profound apologies to Ms. Vance, and to every client and employee impacted by my grave errors in judgment." He paused, his gaze finding Alara, who was watching from the quiet solitude of her temporary apartment, still processing the whirlwind of events. "Ms. Vance," he continued, his voice thick with emotion, "you are a true hero. Your courage, your integrity, and your unwavering pursuit of truth, even when faced with overwhelming opposition and my own stubborn blindness, uncovered a rot within our ranks that threatened the very fabric of our company. You have taught me a humbling, invaluable lesson that true leadership is not about rigid adherence to protocol or believing only what is presented by those in power, but about the courage to seek truth, no matter how uncomfortable, and to listen to every voice, no matter how unconventional. I have tendered my resignation as CEO, effective immediately. I pledge my remaining professional life to ensuring that such a grievous injustice and systemic vulnerability never happens again." Though calls for his complete removal from the company were widespread, Julian Thorne, with the support of a newly appointed interim CEO and the board of directors who recognized his genuine remorse and his invaluable historical knowledge of Viridian, was not forced into complete exile. Instead, he chose a path of active, dedicated penance. He stepped down as CEO, but accepted a non-executive board position, focusing solely on rebuilding Viridian's shattered reputation and implementing unprecedented transparency initiatives. He spearheaded sweeping reforms within the corporate governance structure, implementing rigorous new protocols for vetting, oversight, and internal investigations, creating robust whistleblower protections, and establishing an independent oversight committee to prevent future betrayals. He personally lobbied for increased funding for cutting-edge cybersecurity research and psychological support for employees suffering from corporate trauma and moral injury. He became a relentless, vocal champion for Alara Vance, ensuring her name was completely cleared and that she received every honor and resource due to her. He routinely sought Alara's counsel, humbly listening to her insights, transforming their relationship from one of suspicion and dismissal to deep, mutual respect. Julian Thorne, once a symbol of corporate rigidity and arrogance, had been fundamentally reshaped by the crisis, becoming a humble, principled advocate for a more transparent, ethically sound, and resilient corporate environment. His public journey of redemption, fraught with challenges, was a powerful testament to the capacity for change and accountability even at the highest echelons of power. Alara Vance, fully cleared of all charges, was not just exonerated, she was celebrated. Viridian Dynamics, recognizing the extraordinary nature of her courage and her unique cognitive abilities, bestowed upon her the newly created, highly prestigious title of Global Cybersecurity Director and Chief Threat Intelligence Officer. This was no mere promotion. It was a position of immense power and authority, overseeing all aspects of the company's digital defense and offensive counterintelligence operations. It came with an unparalleled budget, a dedicated team of elite cybersecurity experts, and the full backing of the board to implement any reforms she deemed necessary. This was a meaningful opportunity that truly leveraged her exceptional talent, providing her with the resources, authority, and freedom to protect the very institution that had once wronged her. She found a profound new purpose in safeguarding the digital world, ensuring that no other company and no other individual would suffer the fate of Viridian Dynamics or herself. She could now proactively hunt down corporate traitors and anticipate advanced cyber threats, operating in the shadows to prevent future breaches, transforming Viridian into an impenetrable digital fortress. Months after the dust settled, as Alara settled into her demanding new role, she found herself sitting in a quiet, unassuming coffee shop in downtown San Jose, a stark contrast to the sterile, high-tension environments she usually frequented. Across from her sat Lieutenant Colonel Vivian Sterling, now formally promoted and recognized for her integral role in uncovering the conspiracy. The clinking of coffee cups and the soft murmur of conversations filled the air, a soothing balm after the recent storm. "It's strange, isn't it, Vivian?" Alara said, taking a slow sip of her Earl Grey tea, her gaze thoughtful as she looked out at the bustling street. "How everything changed, how the very thing they tried to use to condemn me, my intuition, my focus on the small digital details became the very thing that saved me. And them. She gestured vaguely, encompassing the world outside. Lieutenant Colonel Sterling smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached her sharp, intelligent eyes. It's the irony of truth, Alara. It always finds a way out. And you were the instrument of that truth. You persevered when anyone else would have broken. You taught me that sometimes the most important evidence isn't found in perfectly formatted reports or official channels, but in the quiet, unwavering conviction of a single honest soul who sees what others can't. She leaned forward, her voice softening. You didn't just clear your name, Ilara. You redefined corporate vigilance. You gave a voice to those who were silenced. You gave meaning to their suffering and to Viridian's integrity. Ilara looked at her, her eyes holding a profound sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The gnawing guilt and public shame had finally subsided, replaced by a deep, quiet satisfaction. She had honored her own integrity not by fading away, but by fighting for the truth. She had found a new purpose, a new family in those who now trusted and believed in her. The long, dark night of her ordeal had passed, ushering in a new calm that was not merely the absence of conflict, but the profound presence of purpose, dignity, and a profound, hard-won justice. She had emerged from the fire, stronger, wiser, and fundamentally at peace with herself and her indispensable place in the world. She was a symbol not just of survival, but of the unyielding power of integrity against overwhelming odds, a testament to the quiet maverick who dared to see the truth. 3 years later, the vibrant, sun-drenched landscape of Silicon Valley no longer felt like a cold, unforgiving battleground for Ilara Vance. The echoes of past betrayals had faded, replaced by the resonant hum of innovation, ethical progress, and the palpable sense of a tech community deeply transformed. San Jose, the heart of this digital empire, had found its footing, embracing a future built on transparency and unwavering integrity. The story of Ilara's quiet courage, once a whispered secret and then a public scandal, had blossomed into a foundational legend, inspiring countless engineers, executives, and even government officials to question, to seek truth, and to stand firm against injustice. Her journey from obscurity to the pinnacle of cybersecurity leadership became a compelling narrative taught in business schools and discussed in tech forums worldwide. Ilara Vance was no longer merely a decorated engineer or a chief intelligence officer. She was an influential architect of global cybersecurity, a quiet, formidable force operating within the deepest echelons of both corporate and national security. Her title, Executive Vice President of Advanced Threat Intelligence and Global Security Operations for Viridian Dynamics, was a reflection of the profound trust placed in her unparalleled abilities. She spearheaded a groundbreaking new division, a highly autonomous, multidisciplinary unit focused on preemptively identifying internal and external threats using her unique methodology. Her work involved analyzing vast streams of intelligence data, cross-referencing global network traffic with granular behavioral patterns, and even subtle shifts in geopolitical landscapes to detect anomalies that traditional systems, even AI-driven ones, often missed. She was the quiet guardian of the digital world, her insights preventing countless potential breaches and safeguarding critical infrastructure across industries. Her reputation, once salvaged from the brink of ruin, now commanded universal respect and awe. Ilara became a highly sought-after strategic consultant for major intelligence agencies. From the National Security Agency NSA to the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency CISA, her name whispered with reverence in the highest halls of power. She frequently delivered keynote addresses at prestigious cybersecurity conferences like RSA Conference and Black Hat, her calm demeanor and piercing insights captivating audiences numbering in the thousands. She authored a widely acclaimed, declassified memoir, The Architecture of Trust, Navigating Digital Shadows and Unmasking Betrayal, a gripping account of her ordeal that became required reading for cybersecurity professionals and executive leadership alike. The book not only chronicled her fight for justice, but also provided invaluable insights into the subtle art of identifying deception through digital forensics, environmental cues, and human patterns, sharing the very talents that had saved her and subsequently reshaped the industry. Her once solitary life was now rich with profound purpose and meaningful connection. She maintained close ties with Lieutenant Colonel Evelyn Reed, their bond forged in the crucible of shared adversity. Reed, now a decorated special advisor to the Department of Homeland Security on cyber warfare, frequently collaborated with Alara, their combined intellect a formidable defense. Alara also became a deeply admired mentor to countless young engineers, imparting not just tactical knowledge, but the profound importance of ethical vigilance and the courage to trust one's intuition. Even when it defies conventional wisdom, her life had blossomed into a second spring, a flourishing of profound meaning and undeniable impact, rooted in her unwavering commitment to justice and her unique, indispensable contribution to global security. The figures who had played their parts in Alara's ordeal had, in the intervening years, met their unyielding destinies, their stories serving as stark lessons for those who witnessed their fall. Mr. Marcus Thorne, antagonist Type A, the ruthless CEO of Omnicorp, continued to serve his multiple consecutive life sentences in the Supermax federal prison in Florence, Colorado. His name, once synonymous with corporate might and cutthroat ambition, now evoked a chilling tale of monumental corruption and catastrophic hubris. His vast ill-gotten fortune had been fully seized by federal authorities, meticulously tracked down across international borders and legally reclaimed. The funds were used to compensate the victims of Omnicorp's extensive corporate espionage and to establish a national fund for cybersecurity education, leaving Marcus utterly impoverished, stripped of every vestige of the lavish lifestyle he had so cruelly maintained. His legacy was not one of power, but of utter, unforgivable failure, a stark, public monument to the destructive consequences of unchecked avarice and profound moral decay. Mr. Julian Thorne, antagonist Type B, the former CEO of Viridian Dynamics, had indeed cemented his path to redemption. He remained a respected, albeit humbled, figure within the corporate world. His approach to leadership was profoundly transformed. He became Alara's most steadfast and vocal champion, often sharing his own humbling story of misjudgment at high-level business forums and international tech summits. He spearheaded the Thorne Vance Ethical Leadership Institute, a comprehensive program, partially funded by his own remaining personal wealth, designed to bolster ethical leadership and promote internal accountability across all industries, not just tech. He tirelessly advocated for resources for psychological support for employees experiencing corporate trauma and moral injury, ensuring that no one else would suffer in silence as Alara had. His and Alara's relationship had evolved into a deep, unspoken bond of mutual respect and shared commitment, a testament to the power of forgiveness and a renewed pursuit of integrity. Julian Thorne, once the embodiment of corporate arrogance, had become a powerful, unwavering force for ethical conduct within the tech industry, forever changed and humbled by the crisis that had nearly consumed them all. The Thorne Vance Ethical Leadership Institute had flourished into a substantial, nationally recognized force for good. It attracted significant government grants and private philanthropic donations, establishing scholarships for promising young engineers who demonstrated exceptional moral courage and analytical prowess. It also created specialized training programs for corporate executives and cybersecurity professionals, integrating Alara's methodologies for identifying subtle signs of corruption and advanced digital threats. These programs ensured that future generations of business and technology leaders were equipped not only with cutting-edge technical skills, but with an unwavering ethical compass. The Institute fostered a culture of vigilance, transparency, and accountability, ensuring that the hard-won lessons from Alara's ordeal would protect the nation's economic and technological backbone from within. The tech industry, once shaken to its core, emerged stronger and more resilient. Its renewed integrity a direct legacy of Alara's quiet fight. The culmination of this new era of vigilance and ethical fortitude arrived on a particularly serene late afternoon in San Francisco, California. The setting sun, a warm, golden orb, cast long, soft shadows across the meticulously manicured lawns of the Global Cybersecurity Museum and Innovation Center. This modern, imposing structure, a testament to the evolving nature of digital defense. Housed interactive exhibits detailing legendary cyber operations. But a prominent wing was dedicated to the Vance principle, the concept of identifying internal and external threats through meticulous analysis of seemingly insignificant digital details and the profound power of trusting one's intuition. It was a tangible, enduring legacy of Alara's unique contribution, a physical manifestation of the intellectual revolution she had helped spearhead. Alara, dressed in a sharp, tailored business suit, her posture relaxed yet always alert, stood on the museum's panoramic observation deck, a profound sense of peace radiating from her. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of the Pacific breeze and the distant murmur of city life. She watched as her younger brother, Leo, now 14 years old, a bright-eyed teenager with a curious mind and an insatiable appetite for complex puzzles, ran up to her. Leo, having grown up on the thrilling, yet carefully explained, tales of Aunt Alara, the digital guardian, clutched a detailed blueprint of a highly complex, almost abstract diagram. A jumble of lines, intricate circuits, and peculiar symbols that looked like a futuristic quantum processor combined with an encrypted network map. He had even started helping Alara test new security protocols, his unique way of seeing patterns proving incredibly valuable. Alara, Leo asked, his voice filled with youthful earnestness, his eyes wide with a mix of wonder and determination. How do you know? How did you know that the system had a hidden flaw when everyone else missed it? How do you see the secrets in the patterns and the code? Alara smiled, a rare, genuine smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. She gently took Leo's hand, guiding it to trace the intricate lines of the boy's drawing. It's not just about what you see, Leo, she said, her voice soft, resonating with years of hard-won wisdom. It's about what you feel. It's about trusting that tiny whisper in your gut, the one that tells you something isn't right, even when all the data seems to point another way. She paused, her gaze drifting to the distant Golden Gate Bridge, a stark symbol of enduring connection and resilience. And most importantly, she added, her voice gaining a quiet intensity, it's about having the courage to follow that whisper, no matter how loud the world tells you it's wrong. It's about knowing that some truths are hidden, like a secret message in plain sight, embedded in the very fabric of things. And it takes courage, Leo, to look for them, and even more courage to reveal them, even when it means standing alone against the storm. The last rays of the setting sun painted the sky in hues of fiery orange and soft violet, casting a warm golden glow on their faces, illuminating the promise of a brighter tomorrow. In the distance, Mark Peterson, the former manager who had once dismissed her, now a senior executive within the Thorne Vance Institute and a changed man, strolled across the museum grounds, deep in conversation with a new group of aspiring ethical leaders, a living testament to the positive ripple effect of one woman's courage and one man's repentance. The thriving landscape of Silicon Valley, rebuilt and resilient, stretched out around them, a powerful symbol of growth, legacy, and the enduring wisdom of trusting one's quiet intuition. The once accused saboteur, dismissed and condemned, had not only reclaimed her honor, but had become the revered leader who forged a brighter, safer future for her nation and the digital world, all because she dared to believe in the value hidden beneath the surface. Her personal second spring had truly blossomed, vibrant and profound, a testament to the enduring power of truth and integrity. If this story stirred your heart, if it reminds you that courage can alter destinies and that light always finds a path even in the deepest darkness, please leave a comment. Share this story with those who need inspiration. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss our upcoming stories.